you, Paul. Thanks for coming.
Okay, good to be here.
Hey, we're good.
We're live. Excellent. I'm just opening everything up on the computer here. And I guess having the agenda open would help as well. All right. I wish I had a gavel so I could call this meeting to order properly. But we'll go through number 1 of the agenda, the welcome. Number 2, open up of general meeting. For number 3, we're looking for an acceptance of the agenda from the July 29th governance meeting. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look.
You mean the minutes?
Or the agenda. Sorry for this meeting.
Yeah.
August 26.
I'll move to accept this agenda.
Excellent. Anybody want any additions or changes? Perfect. Katie, do you accept the agenda?
Sorry, I'm bringing up the agenda.
Very
I'm
good.
not prepared.
Cindy, on mute over there, do you accept our agenda?
I sure do.
Thank you. Basically, we've just got acceptance of new committee members, if any, update on the non-voting member status, and then the big thing will be the accessibility standards is what we'll be reviewing today.
Right, Michael, I forgot to add acceptance of the minutes from the last meeting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it should be in there.
We will add that in there right after acceptance of today's agenda. Yep, no problem. Katie, do you have them up there now?
Yes, it is.
And do you accept?
I accept, yes.
Excellent, thank you. Next matter then is for the acceptance of the agenda minutes from the 29th of July meeting. So we had quite a lot on the go there from last meeting. I have reviewed and haven't seen any changes that need to be made. That's excellent. Thank you as always, Angela, for your skills as the secretary of the board that has to take minutes while we're in camera. This is a lot more difficult of a job than you would think before you start into it. When there's a lot of fast talking going on, you're trying to listen and capture what was said. So appreciate that. Those are thorough minutes. So that's great. Anybody have any changes or additions or revisions to the agenda or the minutes from July 29th? Excellent. So we'll make someone to raise the motion to accept the agenda or the minutes, sorry, from the 29th.
I can do that.
Thank you. Cindy?
I'll second that.
Great. Paul, I guess you weren't there at the last one, but
Wasn't at that one. Actually, there's one item I wondered, do you normally list in attendance and those that were absent too, though?
yeah, usually you would have regrets. We have a little bit of a floating committee at this point in time,
Yeah.
But that's a good idea. I think we should sort out exactly who is a longstanding member and not, and have regrets added to that. So thank you. We'll take that into account. Like I said, I think we have to do an inventory of who's there and if you miss a certain amount of meetings, are you no longer on the committee or not? Because I think there's a lot of people that are an option to attend, but don't often attend. So appreciate that note. So moving on then, anyone have any conflicts that they wish to declare for today's speaking topics? Hearing none. Angela, do we have any applications for new committee members?
No, we do not.
Excellent. Moving on, non-voting member status, no update for that. We won't be able to move forward with that, I don't think, until the board, I think the board, when our last meeting, kind of decided that we're going to hang on to this until we get our governance training, I suppose, or does anyone have a better recollection of what happened at the last board meeting when this was brought up? I'm sorry, I don't have the notes in front of me for what the board decided on how to move forward with this. I think there's a lot of discussion, and I don't know that we reached a resolution on this.
I don't recall a resolution. What I recall is that we have to take it to council. And I believe that we've taken it to clerks, and council isn't sitting again until September. So we just have to sort of wait for them before we can move forward.
All right, I'll make sure we bring it up at the next tomorrow at the board meeting to kind of say, how do you wish to move forward? Because yeah, I don't think that we made a decision as to how we want the board to look like. I know there was some discussion around that where some points were raised. We didn't really want to have people in as non-voting members, and maybe that was a resolution, is we were just going to leave it at that and not change the composition of the board. But we'll get confirmation on that next or tomorrow. All right, so that will move us into our main agenda item of the day, the accessibility standards. Reading through this, I don't know how I didn't clue into this before, but as part of being a legal aid lawyer, a lawyer that accepts legal aid files, one of the things that I had to do this year was take the AODA training and IASR training. So I did receive some certificates for completing that program, and a lot of that came back flooding into my memory. So I do have some questions around that I have typed up, and I guess our students that prepared this document are no longer here. They're finished their work as the capstone project. So I guess it is incumbent on the board to make any changes or accept it as is moving forward. So everyone had a chance to read through the accessibility standards document? Oh yes, excellent.
I had two thoughts on it.
Sure.
That kind of jump out for the most part. One being, because we have similar documents and policy stuff at John Howard Society and at the Durham Legal Clinic, where I sit on the board there. So what jumped out at me is, now, given that unlike in the past, we're in this condition of pandemic, which affects some of the things around accessibility. One being that for persons who may be audio impairment, if we're all wearing masks and they rely upon reading lips, and actually even people without hearing impairment, I've discovered personally, even though I don't have a hearing impairment, how different it is when I'm listening to somebody speak. Seeing their lips actually does play a part in when we understand what they're saying. So wearing a mask, as so many people are having to do in public spaces now, it actually can affect even just non-hearing impaired individuals for being able to understand some of the conversation. But for those who are clearly without hearing, or to some degree, do we need a comment in there somewhere about alternative process or measure to be able to communicate with them in person if we're having to wear masks under a pandemic condition, such as using written notes or a cell phone, or speaking to them with a mask off but with a barrier, like a clear barrier in between, to be able to communicate.
Yeah, I wonder if a face shield could be a.
Yeah.
I mean, at that, I think at that point we have to leave it a little bit at the employee discretion, because I think some people are a little bit uncomfortable with the face shields versus masks, and there's an option, a weighing of options there. But I'd like giving a couple of different options in that regard. The written notes,
Yeah.
the face shield, yeah, cell phone. I think it's nice to have as much detail in these policies as possible, and I think in some areas this read more as a memo of what we need to do, rather than giving a little bit more detail as to what this looks like, so that there's no confusion when this is implemented on the ground. So I think there is some work to do here on the policies. I like it as it stands, but I take your point there with the pandemic, that I think in a lot of different areas, it's going to be impossible. You can't envision every scenario ahead of time, so you have to give discretion to the people that are in charge of implementing in those scenarios. All the employees have to just be aware of the duty to accommodate, what that looks like, and then give them suggestions and empower them to act on that. But I think there can be some more detail in some areas as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. And did you have another comment on there, Paul?
The other one was also sort of again around the pandemic element. So for persons who need a support person with them, also weighing in and factoring, okay, how many people are allowed in the building under the current health guidelines, having to weigh in the fact that if they need a support person with them and they're having to enter the building, being able to accommodate that in some way if there's a limit, if the limit's already there, just being aware of that piece.
I also thought with the support person that's what a great thing from the training as well. We should be, when we're having events, thinking forward into the future when things kind of open back up past pandemic, that we often have ticketed events and gated entry, and there's a little bit of a fee. So there should be some clear notice to people that if you have a support person, that you won't both be charged, and how we would determine whether that is the case or not. Because if you don't give that clear direction, then I think there could be a lot of suspicion involved around that, where you just think people are trying to jump the gate or whatever and get in for free. So figuring out what are appropriate questions to ask and what are not would probably be some good points there, where yes, we should have free entry for support persons, and here's how you determine what's that like, or here's when it's appropriate to ask a question or not, and give some training around that. I do think the training that I took is free and provided through the Ontario government. So one of the questions I had, where we said we have to train the employees, is, well, who trains the employees? I don't feel qualified to do any training on accessibility standards. I don't think it's would be appropriate, but I think there is that resource, and that resource that I went through at least was pretty fulsome. It was 2 hours, I think, with questions asked at the end of everything. For the AODA training, and gives you a lot of good insight as to what accommodation looks like, and how you put that in place in practice. So I think we should I'll look into those training modules, and I think that part of the employee training would be to complete those modules as how we do our training, as well as obviously having them read our specific policies. So anyone have any comments on that piece of it for training and what training might look like?
Yeah, I just posted into chat a link for some free AODA training online.
Perfect.
Yeah.
My life easier. Thank you. Yeah, and I like I said, I don't know that it's appropriate to have anyone here doing the training unless somebody has a little bit extra knowledge that I'm not aware of. That would be great, but certainly if we can utilize these links, then that would be great. Angela, can you copy the link and put that in our minutes or the notes so that I have that?
Will do.
Thank you. Okay. All right, the other question I had is my understanding is that the AODA and the IASR, while everyone has a duty to accommodate, as far as having trained employees, logs and accommodation plans, and sort of that next level of regulation goes, I don't recall that it was every employer with one corporation. However, I knew that there were stricter standards for government entities where I think that might apply. So I'm not sure if anyone has any specific insight on that. I don't think it matters either way. We should have accessibility standards, and I think those are all good regulations to follow. But that point on the front, I think, I didn't believe was correct. I'd have to do a little bit more research on that, and I didn't know if we have even more obligations to fulfill under these acts, as we are what I would consider a government entity, being a local board of council. So don't know if anyone has any insight in that. Paul, maybe you have some insight for that part of it.
Not off the top of my head. I mean, as a member, well, as a committee of council, but as an employee of just currently less than 5, would it affect a little, would that work a little differently for the BIA or?
Yeah, I think as far as the keeping the plans, and there was some requirements that I didn't think fell on us, but when I was doing my training, I was focusing more in on the private side of things. Being a public entity, I knew that there was different levels of standard.
Yeah.
But that I think was a little bit stricter because the government wants to set a better example or ideal for what all businesses should be doing. I said either way, I think it's fine. We could just meet the standards as they are, but that's just a point I had. Lawyer point, I guess we call it, is taking issue with something that doesn't really make a difference.
I just have a quick question. I was just wondering, like, why, I'm sure the city of Oshawa has an accessibility policy, and did we cross-reference that, or kind of why did we go off on our own? And should we somehow, and I'm just wondering what the disconnect was there.
Thank you. That was where my thought was going. That was my note leading me onto that as well, is because we're a local board of council, the city of Oshawa, I'm sure, has those standards and policies in place. And even I was thinking of it more of a get in trouble type of factor where they do a review and find out that our standards are not as rigorous as theirs, or we're not meeting whatever thing that they've put in place, but we seem to get in trouble for what we don't know, and they don't ever reach out and tell us or help us with any of this stuff proactively. So I guess it's incumbent on us to reach out and deal with them for that.
So we did have the students look at the accessibility standards from the city and then modify them, because a lot of our accessibility stuff would probably relate more in terms of events, where there's more, like it would be customer service, it would be in the office more there, and being a much bigger entity.
I'm just wondering, can we have like a preamble or something in front of our policy stating that we followed and referenced the city of Oshawa's? Just to make that clear that it is kind of under the umbrella of the city of Oshawa, and it stems from that one.
Good idea. Yeah.
My fear with doing that is that then we again sort of cloud it and confuse that we're then considered part of the city of Oshawa. Even though we're a board of the city, we're a different entity. And
maybe, yeah, or just maybe wordsmith it so that, because we are kind of joint. Like I hear your concerns, but I think you can also state the concern in the opposite direction, that we've just gone rogue and done our own thing. So if we can somehow mention that we acknowledge them, or I'm not exactly sure how to go about it, but I think it would be smart. That's just my 2 cents. We don't have to, but it's up for debate.
Yeah, so something along the lines of this policy stems from review of the city's policy, and then being formatted to the role of this committee as a committee of council, something like that.
Well, then why don't we also say that, we're following the AODA policy as well, like we've taken from that. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying if we're going to reference the city one, then we should be also referencing the government one.
So where did, I guess the beginning question then would be, what's our source material? Does the AODA have a basic policy accessibility standards that businesses can use and adapt in their workplace? And then we took one from that, and then we took one from the city of Oshawa, or?
Yeah, I totally think it should be referenced. Anything that we used or pulled from.
Sorry, go ahead, Angela.
We could reference it at the end, right? Like doing after performance management, put a reference section.
Right, I'm just going back to your last point, Angela, where you said, why don't we reference the AODA? Did they have standards that we borrowed from and used as well?
To be honest, I don't know how much they took from there. I do know that they did take information from there and from what we provided from the city.
And where did they get the standards from the city? Did they reach out to somebody, or is it posted on the city's website? Or
the city had actually sent Amanda and I, well, probably about 15 or 20 documents beginning of this year that we needed to look at, either create documents on our own, but use theirs as source material, or adopt some of their stuff to make sure that we had things in place that were more in line with theirs. And this was one of the things. Another was like the volunteer manual, things like that.
Yeah, so I mean, given the nature of how the documents came in, and they were kind of like get up to snuff, and you know, you've got to have something like we have. It is that relationship. So I'd say, you know, using resources from the city of Oshawa as a local board of council, the BIA has created these accessibility standards, and that can be as a footnote or at the end or wherever it is. But it sounds like we worked off of the city's accessibility standards and kind of changed some things around the BIA.
We could put a small acknowledgement at the beginning of the document that says we maybe referenced or followed some of the City of Oshawa's, as well as the AO. Sorry, I can't remember the acronym. But and then we can also include like a formal reference section at the end that references the specific documents if we wanted.
That's my vote. I think that sounds good.
Yeah, so when we're under the compliance section under page 3, I think that's a good place to put it in, where it's every business and organization and operating in Ontario. I think we would just make it more specific to the BIA to say, as a local board of council of the city of Oshawa, and utilizing resources from the city of Oshawa, we've created this accessibility standards policy in compliance with the AODA or something around like that, and just defining us, making it very clear we're a local board of council. We're not directly under that, but we are under the thumb of the city of Oshawa, and essentially are a part of that, as we're governed by them and their rules. So that would be my vote too.
Yeah, we can make that happen.
Perfect. Another question I had reading through is, this would be my own ignorance, and I welcome some insight. How would accessibility standards be incorporated into procuring goods and services? So we said we're going to utilize accessibility standards when we are procuring goods and services. What does that look like? Is there any examples of what that means? That's what I'm looking for.
I think that would more fall in if, you know, you're on the phone and talking with someone and asking for a quote, and, you know, they're like, you know, we really need that in writing or something. So it's just providing other alternatives rather than just relying on one method.
So yeah, if we're going to go out and we need to buy pens, yeah.
I think it's just more in terms of we need to be able and willing to do that, and be aware that we might need to, right?
Would that be changing standard practices if we had somebody who needed some accommodation, to give them alternative methods, or for, I guess, like you said, if we're going to be procuring goods, and we're procuring them from someone who will only utilize services over the phone and won't take instruction in writing, then we would be changing our supplier or
I think it would,
yeah, so go ahead.
I think it would depend on what it is. So I think when we're doing like procurement, most stuff under 1,000, it's not a big deal, right? If it's over that, we have to try, and I say try, to obtain 3 quotes, because sometimes we can't. You know, I've sent out RFPs to 5 different people and maybe received 1 or 2 back. So I think it's very situational. I think that we need to be able to say that we have something in place, or at least aware that we might need to try alternatives to ensure that we're accommodating everyone when we're putting out an RFP. And we do that. So with RFPs, we let people know they're out there. We will send it electronically, but we also have paper copies here if someone needs a paper copy.
Okay. That's good. That leads me to my other question too, is there something on our website that has that option, especially if we're posting our minutes on our website? Is there accessible formats for that? Is there large font? Is there different modes that they can receive that information to be in accordance with the act currently? Or is there a blurb on the website that indicates that can happen? Or
I don't believe so. When you open up the documents, like in the for member section, things like our agendas and our minutes, it opens as a PDF. So any kind of accessibility tools that are in a person's PDF reader is probably their best bet. We don't have anything specifically set up on our website, though, unfortunately.
okay, so that's the next piece of it is we need to take charge and start implementing some of these factors in this policy. Even if it's not finalized, we know that there needs to be changes made. So, I mean, the other question was in our employment advertisements, or when we have a new position that we're advertising, do we have the line in there that, we will accommodate, please let us know if any accommodations need to be made, and we'll be happy to do so for the interview. Is that in there? Any of our standard forms?
I'm not sure we have a standard form for when we put out for any new employees. But Cindy might have a better say for that because we're creating a whole bunch of communication. So that could be something that we sort of create a standard one and add that in. But that would be more Cindy's call.
It's a good point, Cindy. I think we do really need to start thinking about that in all of our communications that we're sending out, including that blurb that for the option for accommodation and how people can access that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm pretty sure there's some standard verbiage we can pull from and just tag it onto existing or anything that we're going to create moving forward. So that shouldn't be a problem.
Great. So yeah, the piece that I'm worried about or I was concerned about is great. We have this policy. It reaches out across a lot of different facets of the BIA. And I mean, Angela and Taylor, obviously you guys are going to have this on your mind now. And I hope that you will help champion this as you get ideas from people and are implementing a lot of the different ideas that thinking back to our role and our requirements here and making sure that what we're doing as a BIA is accessible. And I think that reaches out to our members through everything. We always have to have that consideration now as a thought into that. So any suggestions from you guys on how this can be best implemented or how we can make sure that we're not missing out on the implementation piece of this?
This is still fairly new to me, but as far as the website and online things go, I can definitely do an overhaul and make sure that we have plain text and different things in our website so that they can be easily read by the online. I'm not exactly sure what the word is, but there's different tools online where you can have descriptive text and different things so that when somebody who does have a disability can easily read or have things read out to them. It just has to be written in a certain format. So I can definitely do an overhaul of our website and make sure it's like that. Same with our social media and our YouTube. We can start incorporating closed captioning, that kind of thing.
Yeah, Google has tools you can sort of embed in your site that can do some of that for you too, like in terms of translation drop-down boxes,
Okay.
right on your page. So just in one drop-down box, it can convert all of your stuff to French or something else. It's not a perfect translation, but it's an immediate tool to provide improved access. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll look into that then.
I do have, in terms of the blurb around like, this may be something that could be useful as a preamble text for like when there's RFPs posted online or something. This is on job postings that our agency uses. If it's all right with you, I'll just share screen for a second to show you what I can bring up.
Sure.
Oh, actually, it's turned off. Here, what I'll do, I'll send you the link in the chat. And you
I
guys-
can actually share your screen if you want, Paul.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Um, Okay, Paul, try sharing your screen now.
Perfect. That seems to be working. So this is from, we use a site called Bamboo HR for our job postings and stuff. So this is the front end of any posting that we have. It has this little preamble about human rights code and providing services that are meeting needs without discrimination, regardless of their race, ethnicity, and so on. So this might be, and then there's the specific mention of the AODA right there in bullet 2. So it just kind of gets put in front of any of our postings. It might be useful text for whether it was a job posting or for even like RFPs that you've got for stuff too. So I think you can just I'm sure we probably copied and pasted this from some other places that we've seen it. So you could probably just adapt it for what you would want to use for online postings as well.
Looks good. I think my initial thought was that's very long, but I think the use of that is that it
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want it to just kind of be a one-off or have the person think that you're not actually taking it seriously, you're just meeting obligations. So
Yeah.
having this in there kind of front and center, I think would make people feel a little bit more comfortable that you take it seriously and that it isn't just a brush over for what you need to do. So
Yeah. Okay. So I posted the link into the chat for that if you wanted to have a look at it afterwards. And again, maybe it's just this thing of a little bit of wordsmithing if it is a bit long to trim it down to what fits appropriately.
Great, thank you very much for that. So that's the standards. Now, I guess the next question is, what do we do with them from here? I think we should certainly circulate to all the board members.
Actually, I have one quick question. I don't even know if it's relevant, but it came to mind when I was reading through. In the case that we do have to provide accommodations, is there any point in setting aside a line item in the budget as a reserve or a financial resource? And I mean, I know that's tricky because it not necessarily will be used and it's a line item that might just sit there and carry over. But I didn't know if it was worthwhile having a reserve for that reason. That when I was reading through, that came to mind.
Good comment. Angela, can you put that on the next agenda for the finance and audit?
Sure. So I would say though, we do usually have an admin miscellaneous line item, although it's not very much usually, but that would provide some accommodations.
Perfect. Yeah, just to make sure we have enough of a contingency fund should we need to access any materials or supplies for people who might need it. That would cover it off. So, and maybe, yeah, to just discuss if you need to beef up that number a little bit.
Okay. Yep, I can make sure that that's added for the finance meeting. It might actually even be brought up tomorrow at the board meeting.
Okay. Yeah, so once, I think there only really is, as far as changes to the document goes, I mean, it can be a living document, so we can change and adapt it as time goes on and as we see we need to, but as far as it is right now, I think it's good to get in the hands of all the key members and make sure we have it. Should this be something we post on our website as something that people can see and review that we have and that we're abiding by it? Or I guess we have to get it voted in by the board first.
Yeah, it'll have to be approved by the board first. And then, yeah, we can always post all our policies and stuff like that under the members section, at least under the members section. If, you know, that would have to go to like marketing communication with Taylor's input as to where it should go on the website. But at the very least, we can be adding it under the members section. Were there any changes? Like even like, I don't know, we did have our summer student edit and reformat because the formatting was horrible. Are there any additions, changes within the document that anyone wants? And if so, they can just send them to me. You know, it could just be small things, whatever. I just want to make sure that, you know, what we're sending out to the board tomorrow, or I'm assuming it would go to the board tomorrow.
I think it was just the preamble is all that was.
Okay, yeah, we can work on the preamble today, and then we can send it to you and Cindy. And then it can be presented tomorrow at the board.
Sure.
Or at least brought up, and maybe they might want to hold off because it's kind of short notice for them to approve it, but it would give them some time to look at it.
And we do actually have the ADOA handbook on our website already in the members section. So it's not ours, but it is up there.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, if we're going to talk about it at the board tomorrow, then I guess I'll have to figure out the answers as to what our legal obligations are. All right, anyone have any other points or things they want to discuss around the accessibility policy? Hearing nothing. Talk about, we're on to new business. So we got our results of our first board survey. Thank you very much, Katie, for reviewing that and taking a look. What I'll bring up tomorrow from that is that the members seem to believe that the board meetings need to be run on time and better time management needs to be had, and we need to start finishing on time and setting more realistic expectations for each item and how long things are going to take. So that was the big news there. Other than that, there was no real issues. The other thing that I'm struggling with is the exit surveys, which I've received one now and reviewed. If we promise the person that will be confidential, how do I use that? How do I report in on that? I mean, I'm not going to, obviously, if I talk about it, I won't name any names of who the person was, but at the same time, we don't have that many employees. So
I think that would be like an in-camera session.
Would it be in camera though? Because it's not.
If it's identifiable when you're talking about the individual, even if you're not mentioning their name, I would assume that would be identifiable, especially because we have so few staff.
Right, but they're not staff anymore. That's the part where I had.
They were, right? And you don't want what they're saying to damage, you know, because it could have been a personality conflict or whatever. But, you know, we've asked for their opinion. The board should be made aware of it. At least that's my opinion. I think that it would be an in-camera just because if they're identifiable, right?
Yeah, that makes sense to me as well, Angela. Good points.
Yeah. I'm just really nervous. In camera is a pretty, you want to make sure you meet the bar. And I agree, like I don't want to talk about that in an open meeting. And I think it should be isolated, but.
Because like right now we're still doing hybrid meetings too. So if we're recording and we might think that the person isn't identifiable, but for someone who's watching, they still might be able to identify the person. And if that person is watching the video and can identify that that's who we're talking about, then we could get in trouble.
Trouble all around.
Yeah, I know. If you want, I can clarify with the clerk's office.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, I'll clarify with the clerk's office today.
Thank you. Okay. Any other new business? Anything anyone want to raise? Open forum. Whatever you like to talk about governance-wise.
I'm just to clarify, I'm going to be sending out I believe it's a volunteer policy for the next one.
Is that what we're on next for the next review? Is the volunteer policy?
I believe so, because I asked for this one to be bumped up ahead. We do have the risk management and we have the volunteer policy. Both are mainly related around events. However, I think volunteer one is a little more important because we do have other activities that we use volunteers for, such as, you know, tomorrow I've got a whole bunch of students coming to remove lights off of some aluminum fixtures. So I think that one might take precedence over the risk one at the moment.
That sounds good to me. Anybody have any concerns with the review of our volunteer policy for the next meeting in September? Very good. All right. Well, I think that's our marching order. We've done very well, kept under our time limit. I think we had a nice discussion on the accessibility standards. Again, Paul, great seeing you, and hope you can make it back out again. Appreciate having.
Definitely intend to, yes. Yeah.
Excellent. Having members in here, it really adds to the discussion. And thanks, Katie, for coming back. And you'll have a new survey of the board to review for us for next month. So looking forward to that. Cindy, more quiet than usual, but we still appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
And Taylor, I really appreciate having you here as well and adding to the conversation. And as always, our fearless, what I would say, leader. I may be the figurehead, but there's always the person doing the work. So really appreciate everything, Angela, and getting everything together and coming in early as well. Sorry for blocking you off, Taylor.
Oh, no worries. I was just going to say my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and definitely take a look at some of the things we discussed and make some changes.
Great. Awesome. All right. Well, I think that all I would be looking for now is a motion to adjourn.
I'll move that.
Thank you. Katie.
I can second that.
Excellent. Cindy. We're going to go ahead and say Cindy approves.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said that. I'm like, do you need me for anything? I don't approve.
So yes?
Yes, sorry.
Thank you very much, everybody. That will conclude our meeting, and we will see you guys next month. Thanks very much.
Have a good day.
Bye
Have
now.
a great day,
Right
guys.
now.